It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games. Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
Cade to the right wing. Cade launches and connect. A big-time long gun goes for Cade, and the Pistons are up 92-87.
Wing right Holmgren. Jab steps on H. Holds. Cranks a three. That's online. Looks good. It is. He splashes it. Cha-ching a Thunder Monday ball. Chet the All-Star knocks down his third three tonight.
LeBron has the worst whistle of any star player I've ever seen. I mean, I've been with him 2 years now. Again, the smaller guys, because they can be theatric, they typically draw more fouls, and the bigger players that are, built like LeBron, it's hard for them. But he gets clobbered, and he got clobbered again tonight a bunch, and that's not like a new thing. That's not specific to this crew or, this series. He gets fouled a lot. That doesn't happen. I mean, guy gets hit on the head more than any player I've seen on drives, and it rarely gets called.
That's J.J. Redick, the Lakers coach, on LeBron James. Whether that is true or not could be a fascinating conversation. It's going to have zero impact on the outcome of this series because they can't give LeBron enough free throws to close the gap between the Thunder and the Lakers. Thunder win 125-107. They trailed at halftime, and they still win very comfortably. The Thunder are better. The Thunder are great. And I think the only team that can take the Thunder down, San Antonio. And we'll see if San Antonio gets there because obviously they're 1-1 in their playoff series. They got Game 3 coming up tonight on Amazon Prime. It's Knicks and Sixers at 5 and then Spurs and Timberwolves at 7:30. San Antonio split the two games in Texas. Now they're in Minnesota for the next two. So we'll see how that goes. The Thunder, that was just really impressive. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't have a great game. You can't count on Jalen Williams playing. He's missing half or more of their playoff games. I have to go back and do the math, but he's played in less than half the playoff games, I think. And it doesn't matter. They're so good. They're so deep. They find another way to win by it. They were actually, I think, plus 18 when Gilgeous was off the floor. He didn't have a good game. It didn't matter. The Thunder, impressive. So they're up 2-0 on the Lakers. They've won 6 straight to open the playoffs. They just look fabulous. Detroit's up 2-0 on Cleveland. Theme of the morning, how do you go from good to great? How do you go from good to very good, great, excellent, championship? There's so many teams trying to do it. And there's so many of our teams. Now, here in Utah, we got plenty of people who've come from somewhere else, or we don't have an MLB team, so you root for a team from somewhere else. So it's not like it's exclusively our teams, but that question of how do you go from good to great faces Donovan Mitchell here. Is he a good player? Yes, he is. You may not like him, but don't say he's not a good player. That's just ridiculous. Now, Shaq, who was a great player, like LeBron, he thought he got a terrible whistle. But he won 4 championships. And yes, he was bigger than everybody, and how he was refereed was a massive question. But when Shaq called Donovan out, super awkward timing. But the bigger point, Donovan scores, but what else can he do? He's small by NBA standards. Let me just stand next to him. He's a 6-foot-tall guy, but he is not 6'3". In a league where you need to be 6'6". So hard to be a great defensive player. He could apply himself a little more. Let's not kid ourselves. But nonetheless, he's never going to be 6'6". People are always going to shoot over him. He's not going to be a great rebounder at that size. You can be better. There's a lot of missed threes and long rebounds to chase down. He could do better there. And maybe more assists, set more guys up. He's such a scoring threat. But does that get him to great? Does that get him to a conference final? Now, Cleveland's in this weird situation where they've lost every single road game they played in the playoffs, and they've won every home game. They're 4-0 at home. They're 0-5 on the road. They're going home. Maybe they can tie this series up. But that question looms over Cleveland. How do you go from good to great? No different than what's looming over Utah and BYU football. No different than what's looming over the Mammoth or what I believe is about to loom over the Jazz. We can just keep going down the list of local teams. How do you go from good to great? That faces the Cavaliers and Donovan Mitchell right now, because it looks like they might be coming up short on the old second round again. They're down 0-2. They are going home, so we'll see if they get back in the series. The injuries. What is the NBA going to do about all the injuries? There are so many of them. I know tanking's been an issue. I know load management's been an issue. And I know people completely and totally dedicated to the three-point shot are going to be an issue. And by the way, been reading stories that could really be an issue in Boston. You heard PK go off on it yesterday, not on Boston because they're already out of the playoffs, but he talked about during the Boston series, and again, Philly at the end of that loss to the Knicks, why this just complete and total dedication to the three-pointer. When it's not going, you got to do something else. It seems like it's an off-season debate in Boston. Postseason press conference wrapping it up. I mean, the Celtics don't just do it. They're coached to do it by Missoula. I mean, they are coached to do it. However, Brad Stevens up there in the front office, what does he think? And where is that going? So you got all these stories, but to me the biggest one is still the number of guys missing games. You don't need to watch a game when teams are either sitting their star players on purpose in the regular season or even in the playoffs missing them, and you know the game's going to be lopsided. You know who's going to win or lose based on the injury report, based on one sentence that pops up on social media or on the crawl across the bottom of the screen. And now OG Anunoby is hamstring strain, late game 2, considered day-to-day as they get ready for game 3. The injuries just keep piling up. What are they going to do about this? We pay to see the stars. Now, OG's a very good player. He's not great, but he is a good player. You know, I think certainly more than half of Jazz fans know who he is. You know, in the East, and they're coming through town once a year. But people know who he is, and now they're going to be missing him, it looks like. We'll see. Day to day, maybe he'll be back, but it's a hamstring. They need to be careful with that. They need him. Former Kansas star Darren Peterson said the cramping episodes he dealt with while playing for the Jayhawks were due to his high doses of creatine. Wow, Mark McGuire, hello. Creatine's back, baby. I had never taken it before I arrived at Kansas, but after the season I took 2 weeks off and they did tests which showed my base level was already high. So they said when I dosed, it must have made the levels unsafe. Well, great. All right, well, he's got a story to explain that because a lot of people are wondering why he didn't play more. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
Men's and women's basketball tournaments are going to 76, yeah? No kidding. So the first 4 turns into 12 opening games, 2 sites, so they're going to be 6 games at each site now. I guess we're going to have triple headers, so there you go. The men are Dayton, and then they're going to determine another one. And, man, Vegas and Salt Lake look like obvious possibilities. We'll see how that plays out. I'm sure there are people down in Texas who want it too. So they spread those locations around. And, man, people are screaming about this, but the truth is teams getting into the first 4 are advancing in the tournament. I just don't think there's a big difference between Team 68 and Team 28. Now, at the top there is. There are some powerhouses. You can just look and fill Duke into a regional final the last couple of years and be right because they're that good. But even these teams that look really mediocre, Texas, Oklahoma, well, Texas got in and Oklahoma didn't. Well, Texas won 3 games and ended up in the Sweet 16. They weren't that bad. And UCLA had that awesome run. And those aren't the only 2 schools. There's so many teams that have advanced. I can't even remember them off the top of my head. I'm not opposed to this. I think this whole thing's going to 96 at some point, and you're just going to get 32 byes and 64 teams play in the opening round. And the winners advance, and then we got a round of 64. That's where it's going. And, you know, honestly, if the Texases and UCLAs of the world can make these runs, I don't think it's that bad. It looks ugly putting Oklahoma in when they're only a couple games over 500. But if they can win in advance, why not? All right, DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
This is not a drill. This is real. Aaron Rodgers expected to be in town tonight with the expectation of him signing this weekend. This is a big one. Mm-hmm. This is the real thing, folks.
Yep.
Not speculation. This is what we have been told.
Well, I guess in Pittsburgh, Steeler country, sure, make a big deal of it. But Aaron Rodgers coming back, and I know they made a coaching change, but it still looks like a team that's going to cap out at 10-7. And, Yak, am I off base on this? You're a big football guy. I tell you, Steelers, 10-7. Higher or lower? Well, I'll say 10.5, so there's no push. 10.5. Would you take higher or lower? You would take lower.
I actually would push I would push over just like to 11.
No way, really?
Yeah, I think they've got a really good wide receiver core.
Huh. All right. Well, I'm not surprised Rodgers waited until after the draft.
Oh no,
what
he wanted
in
to see.
Atlanta,
He wanted to see what played out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
make sure they don't draft a young guy and push you aside because that happened to what's his face, Kirk Cousins.
With Michael Penix. Yeah.
Yeah, and they drafted Penix, and then all of a sudden Cousins like, what did you sign me for? I could have signed somewhere else. So I just think veteran quarterbacks at the end of their career are now going to wait until after the draft, and that's just how they're going to play it. Minnesota Vikings signed former 49er wide receiver Juwan Jennings, 1 year, $13 million. He gets a chance to show he's worthy of a long-term extension. 55 catches, 643 yards, 9 touchdowns. That's good. It's not great. Are they going to get good enough quarterback play? Who is going to be their quarterback? You know, there's a whole theory that you go to a team like Arizona because they got bizarre ownership. They roll through coaches. They don't sign big-time draft and extend big-time players. It's just kind of mediocrity. So maybe they get a little somehow Sam Darnold kind of deal where he's good, but he's got to be in the right situation to be good, which is really what they're saying about Brock Purdy in San Francisco. He's good, but if he's going to be great, he's got to be in the right situation because nobody's Josh Allen except Josh Allen, right? So we'll see how that works out. Vikings trying to turn things around after they let Darnold go. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
Florida State and Georgia canceled a home-and-home because the SEC and ACC are going to 9 games, and especially for schools like Georgia and Florida State where you got 9 league games, and there are a lot of teams playing soft schedules and hiding, but Florida State and Georgia both have in-state rivals in the other league, right? Florida State plays Florida, Georgia plays Georgia Tech in those SEC, ACC crossover games that we so often see. Kentucky and Louisville,
exactly.
Clemson, South Carolina, some of the other ones. So they're at 10 big-time games. These aren't the teams that are ducking people. These aren't the teams playing nobody, so I get why they canceled that.
Well, and
the ACC will send Syracuse and Wake Forest to BMO Field in Toronto to open the 2027 season. Do I get residuals for that, Yak? Do I get paid for that? How many times have I wasted your time between 10 and 10:30 telling you this? You have a life to get on with, and I have to keep beating this drum. Will I shut up now, Yak?
No,
I will not.
No, it's okay. But
do I get a residual? Do you get a residual for putting up with me?
We should all get a residual. Let's be real.
Right? How come college football ADs haven't figured out to go play in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver? They got 50,000-seat stadiums. Now in BMO, they're choosing to go to one that I think is actually 30 or 35. So a little smaller there. You can play football in the Dome there. It's baseball season, so you got to get the right date, but you can make it work. Montreal's got Olympic Stadium. They got that BC Place in Vancouver. I'm telling you, BYU versus Washington or Wazoo in Vancouver. Sold out, making money. As soon as they move to week 0, this loophole in the rule may go away. I can't believe BYU hasn't cashed in on it. BYU Notre Dame in Toronto for a bonus game. That'd fill the place up. All right, DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Caminero waiting on a 2-1. He swings and launches one. Deep center field, way up in the air, headed for the bleachers. It's a line drive. 2-run homer for Junior Caminero. The Rays busted open. It's 8-4, and what a shot by Junior.
0-1. Sanoja rips that one on the ground. That eats up Mayo, but it pops off his shoulder. He collects. The throw gets by Alonso, and Mack will come in to score. That ground ball ate up Mayo, and when he recollected, he fired a BB, but right into the dirt. Alonso could not pick it out, and magic happens when you put the ball in play.
Wait, magic happened, Yuck? That's why you played that highlight, isn't it? You just heard magic happens.
Magic happens. Congratulations, Miami Marlins.
Magic happens. Okay, so that will never grow old, apparently.
Magic happens.
All right, highlights from around Major League Baseball. Tampa's won 7 in a row. They've won 13 out of 14. That is unreal. How many teams are red hot right now? The Yankees are on a roll. They blow out Texas 9-2. Chicago's on a hot streak, 15 straight at home. I think it's 19 of 22 overall. The record at Wrigley Field, and stadium records aren't really a thing in baseball because they keep tearing down the stadiums and building new ones every 20 or 30 years. But since Wrigley has been home to Major League Baseball for well over 100 years, stadium record might matter there. That's 15 straight home wins, and the record at Wrigley is 18 in a row, set by the 1935 Cubs. So Chicago's got a 9-game win streak. They've got a 15-game win streak at home. It is crazy to me in baseball, a sport where everything changes every day based on the starting pitching. Even in an era of diminished starting pitching, if you're hot, you roll somebody out there and they get lit up in the first, second, or third inning. What are you going to do, right? But it's lopsided. It's got that whole NBA tanking thing going on. The bottom is bad, the top is good, and the top is just crushing these teams at the bottom. What we do get this weekend is a great series here: Dodgers and Braves. Dodgers, the defending world champs. Braves have the best record in baseball. They've actually got the 2 best records in baseball right now. So they will square off. Braves and Dodgers, first pitch tonight at 8 o'clock. That is the series to watch this weekend. And the Bees lost Oklahoma City 6-5. So 3 games to go in this series. Game 4 tonight, 6 o'clock. Tony Park's on the call. Listen on 1280 The Zone at 6 o'clock. And Mookie Betts expected to start a rehab assignment in Oklahoma City versus the Bees tonight. He's been out since April 5th due to an oblique strain suffered on a check swing during an at-bat. All right, DJ and PK.
Hashtag RSL.
Real Salt Lake headed to Frisco, Texas to take on FC Dallas tomorrow. First kick at Toyota Stadium set for 6:30. Coverage on the Zone starts at 5:30 with the RSL pre-match show. Pablo Mastroeni will join us coming up later in the show. He's going to be here at 9 o'clock this morning. We'll talk with him about playing in the middle of the league. RSL's got 4 games left before they take a big break for like 6 weeks for the World Cup. RSL's been really good against the bottom of the league, with the possible exception of LA, but that was a terrible no call on what should have been a red card. They've been pretty bad against the top of the league, except for Seattle that one night. Man, Seattle had like 5 shutouts in their first 6 games, and RSL scored twice and beat them. But they lost to Vancouver, they lost to Miami. So how does RSL stack up? They're somewhere in the middle. They haven't really played the middle of the league. Their next 4 games against the team that's right in front of them and 3 teams that are right behind them. They're literally playing the middle of the league here in the next 3 weeks. So we'll talk with Pablo about that and about the theme of the morning, from good to great. That is one of Pablo's favorite topics to talk about. We will get to that coming up. The Utah Royals have won 5 in a row. They won Wednesday night again. So they've got a 5-match win streak. They are flying. They have been, there's no graceful way to say this, they have largely been, what's what I'm looking for? Terrible, atrocious. And it looks like they flipped a switch, because not only are they not terrible, atrocious, they don't even look mediocre. They've won 5 in a row. They only picked up 1 point in the first 3 games. They have figured something out. They're in San Jose to play Bay FC. Can they make it 6 in a row? First kick set for 2 o'clock. They've never been to the playoffs. Now, it's a long way to go, and they got a World Cup break too. But, man, 5 straight wins. That's crazy. They're on 1280 The Zone. Pregame at 1:30. First kick at 2 o'clock Sunday when they play in San Jose. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL.
Now Aho back across Svechnikov. He's got to go skate to stick. He goes low to high for Gauze to spare. Now send it cross. They score! It's a power play goal. Andrei Svechnikov. It's the second power play goal of the game, and the Canes have a 3-1 lead here in the third.
All right, NHL highlights. The Carolina Hurricanes, 4-1 winners over the Philadelphia Flyers in Pennsylvania. They lead that series 3-0. I know crazy things happen in hockey, and the second round isn't done yet, and I know the Stanley Cup playoffs get wild, and we still have conference finals to go through. But you look at what Carolina and Colorado did in the regular season, and you look at how these two have dominated the playoffs, they will be exempt from our upcoming discussion on going from good to great, because they look great. They just look awesome. Tonight, Montreal and Buffalo, Game 2. Man, Buffalo has been so bad for so long. They stormed through the regular season. They won their first playoff series. They're up 1-0 on Montreal. This is a big game. Sabre fans will be going nuts in Buffalo tonight. Man, between the Sabres and the Bills, they haven't been able to win the big one lately. Buffalo, really, in hockey, they haven't even been able to get close. It is different now. Buffalo with a great turnaround season. Vegas and Anaheim tied 1-1. They're playing Game 3 tonight. That hockey doubleheader is on TNT tonight. So you can get your Stanley Cup playoff fix there. That's what is trending. It's brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. David Locke is here at 8:30. Pablo Mastroeni joins us at 9 o'clock. Good to great. How does it get done? That is coming up. Next question of the day is on the way. DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeCoe.
Why is BYU not coming to Logan? It's great that they're playing BYU, but why is there no return trip? Getting this rivalry just on the books in some way, shape, or form is huge. For Utah State, they need quad one games. In the landscape of college basketball, it would not surprise me one bit if Utah State called up Kentucky or called up Kansas. And I wouldn't surprise me one bit if Kentucky's like, sure, hold please, click. Kansas, click. Because I don't think these teams are interested in building other teams' resumes, especially G5 resumes.
The bottom line is the power schools have always and definitely currently hold the cards. For BYU to work with Utah State and get 2 dates on the calendar in today's basketball world, I mean, it's definitely a win. It's a win for both. It's a win for the state. I wish last year they were on the schedule.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The KSL Sports Zone and Beehive Meals are honoring people that impact youth sports in our communities. Nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week at KSLSports.com/contest. And listen every Thursday afternoon to Jake and Ben for the winner. It's the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week. So here at the Zone, there are many sports stories we can talk about. And we always look for stuff that appeals to the biggest possible audience. And I know that frustrates some of us, or some of you. You probably wish we talked more hockey. I think during the playoffs we actually talked quite a bit of hockey. But for the time before that in the regular season, back in November and December, talk more hockey. It's like, well, it's kind of still football season. And for those of you who love the NFL, and we've actually sat in a meeting, PK and I, why don't you guys talk more NFL? Because people want to talk college football. That's why. And certainly Utah State fans or RSL fans, whoever else, talk more about it. Well, we're trying to appeal to the biggest possible audience. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about teams and leagues, but there are stories that cut across all sports or cut across multiple sports. I think today we've got one that cuts across all. It's something that Pablo Mastroeni has talked about when he's on, and he'll join us today at 9 o'clock. We'll talk to him about this. And it is not a soccer story specifically. This is college sports and pro sports. This is the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL. This is just across all the sports, and you can argue it's across all of life. If you're the person who says, I want my kid to play high school sports, I want them to, experience the whole thing, teamwork and winning together and losing together and having another mentor. And I know my kid's not going to the World Series or the Super Bowl or the World Cup or whatever, but that's not the point. Well, then this is one of these lessons that you can take away. If all you are, quote unquote, is just good enough to play high school sports, which is a lot of us. It's me, it's PK, it's Yak. It's a pretty common story. We can play something at the high school level, but after that, well, good luck. That's what rec leagues are for. So it's a question Pablo brings up. How do you go from good to great? Now, this could apply to you at work, in your business world. We're going to apply it right now to our local teams because I think currently we have a lot of teams that this applies to. I don't think it applies to Utah State basketball. I think they've got a separate situation the way finances are going. So I wouldn't necessarily think this applies to the Aggies in basketball. I think at their level, they're great. I guess if you want to say, how do you go from good to great in the financial side, that's the real test. And we set out Utah basketball. I mean, they just finished last place in the league. They got to figure out how to get to the middle of the league and avail themselves of some opportunities I think are out there for them, but they got to get to the middle of the league. And the cool thing is, in the middle of the league they're in, literally half the league can go to the NCAA tournament. So if you can get to the middle, you're at least on the bubble, and you might be in. But for everybody else, BYU. I know they're Final Four dreams, but you know what BYU was last year? They were a good team. Were they a very good team or a great team? Indeed, they were not. They were good. Fight me, Yak. Fight me.
I got nothing.
See, no fight. They were good. Yeah, right? And BYU and Utah, 12-2 and 11-2. I'd argue they're very good. But were they great? No. No, they weren't. They were 23-4. Okay, set aside one win and one loss because they played each other. They could have been Oregon and Oregon State when they were horrific. They were still going to get a win and a loss, right? So let's just set that aside. 3 losses, that leaves 3 losses, all to Texas Tech, who won the league. Those two teams, Utah and BYU, clearly not as good as Texas Tech. We saw it play out over 3 games. Against everybody else, Utah and BYU are combined 22-0. So they're good. And I know, and I can see it in our comments, Ute and Cougar fans, come on, man. Stop firing off on each other. You're both good. But are they very good or great? They couldn't match Texas Tech, and then Tech got in the playoffs and got embarrassed by Oregon, and Oregon can't handle Indiana. So how do Utah and BYU get to great? How do they get into the playoff and maybe pick off a game when they get there? And let's see how big the tournament is. You know, can you get to a quarterfinal? That might require 2 wins, depending on what they do. So good to great. I think the Jazz have been terrible, but they are about to be good. I'm just so positive they're going to win 45 games, and I think they can win 50. Now you got to stay healthy, and let's see what they do with the roster, and let's see where everybody else goes. It's good to great. The Mammoth are in the middle of the league now. They made the playoffs. Granted, there were teams with better records that didn't make the playoffs, but they've made it to the middle of the league. How do you go from good to great? Pablo's going to come on, and I suspect he's going to go straight to, because he's a coach, he works individual levels. Individual guys we really like. Every team's got popular guys. How do you get better? How do you take it? How do you find one more thing? For Lowry Markkanen, he's going to score when he comes back. But what kind of defender is he going to be, and what kind of rebounder is he going to be? We got to hold him to a standard there. You're a $50 million player. And Jaren Jackson is too, and he hasn't been a great rebounder. Now, he's been Defensive Player of the Year, so we know he can defend. But, hey, need more. Need more, big guy. Need more from all of you. Because the fact is, they just broke up a team because it was good, and they didn't think it could get to great. That's why that happened. And that's why we get hate email for Danny Ainge, which I think is bizarre, unless, you know, you're a Ute fan who rooted for the Lakers, in which case you hated him as a Cougar and you hated him as a Celtic, in which case I guess I understand all that hate social media post we get. But the guy won big time as a player, you know, won multiple championships. Then he went to teams that weren't good and elevated him to the NBA Finals. He was part of that in Portland, part of that in Phoenix. It's not just luck. He put together a championship team in Boston and won a title, went back to the finals again, and then put together another team. I think he knows something about great. So it's painful tearing apart a good team. But neither Gobert nor Mitchell has been to an NBA final, and Mitchell still hasn't been to a conference final. So maybe they're onto something. Maybe they saw something there. Now, 4 years is a long time. I get that. That was a lot of suffering. The thing is, they got to put together a great team, and that's going to require doing hard things. And I think one hard thing that's going to be required here is popular players are going to have to move on. Because I'm looking at this team that they're building right now, and it doesn't look like a championship caliber team. I watch Oklahoma City in the playoffs, and I don't think if we put up a question here that you can honestly say, yeah, they're going to match up with these guys in the next year or two. I don't see it. There have to be moves out there. And, you know, PK's known Austin Age since he was a teenager. Lots of us have known him. They've been in closer contact. And so they'll joke around about what's going on. I don't think PK has any particular insight because I don't think Austin he's giving up the goods. And honestly, at this point, I don't even know if Austin knows. You know, decisions don't get made until people are under pressure. And are they going to call you back on that trade you talked about, or were you just talking? Well, we're not going to know now. We may know on draft night, but we're not going to know now. And I don't even know if Austin knows now. I suspect he doesn't. But he's going to have to do hard things. He's going to have to move people. Is it going to be Markkanen or Jackson? Is it going to be Kessler this offseason maybe, if he wants too much money? Is it going to be Keontae George, who in another summer is going to want to get paid, we presume? Hard things, hard calls are going to have to be made. And it's great for us because you people, you don't want to talk about bad teams. And there's nothing to say about a great team when they're great. You sit back and you soak it up. But the real debate, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, it's about going from good to great and making hard decisions. I think for BYU basketball, hard decision, do you really want to keep going in on these high-end freshmen? It does send the message, we'll get you ready for the NBA, and this is where NBA caliber talent goes. And you want that. But then you look at the teams that are winning, and are they really loaded with NBA talent? I mean, you could say in college football they're loaded with NFL talent. So I guess the hard question for our local teams there, How do they go from good to great? Comes down to money. Some of the hardest questions are for boosters and for the school. What kind of money do you want to commit? This is so sketchy in college sports right now. My gosh, it's sketchy. We're seeing reports, and they're starting to fall in line a little bit, so I want to trust them. But when people start talking about money and they can't be audited, come on, man. If you haven't been defrauded, you've at least had people try to scam you out of money. People start talking about money, weird stuff starts happening. Keep your hand on your wallet, as Jerry Sloan once famously said. Keep your hand on your wallet. But some of these stories are starting to fall in line. You know, the college basketball, there's going to be 50, $10 million teams and 20 teams paying $20 million. Do you really want to do that? Utah's a long way away. Don't want to take a leap of faith. Is there somebody who wants to write those checks every year? You're talking about being good for the next decade. You're talking about a couple $100 million because the price of poker keeps going up. I mean, a couple $100 million. Yeah, you're hip deep in BYU. Have you heard anybody wanting to rescind that "we will not be outbid" quote?
No.
Because while a lot of people would laugh, I got to say, I don't think I would. I would accept this, and I've always accepted this. When my kids were young, I would say it. Like, when you get new information, feel free to have a new opinion. You have your opinion based on whatever info you have, but you get new info, feel free to have a new opinion. Well, I think we'd all be better off if people changed their opinions as they got new info and didn't just stay stapled to the wall in one place. I see the price of poker going up. Somebody says we're not going to be outbid. Well, if Kyle's right about $50 million football teams in 2027, and Kyle's usually right about this kind of stuff, man, if somebody gulps and says, yeah, never mind, I get it. You hear any of that yet, Yak? Or they're standing firm so far?
Everything I've heard is they're standing firm on where they're at, but to your point, that could change.
But I think what you just said is true. And I trust you to have the ear to the ground, and you talk to BYU people and people who love BYU, even if they're not BYU people. And if people were backing away, word would get around. You know, the old where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't know if you'd have two sources and, you could post it old school, but you'd know. And I think the thing that backs it up is look at the transfer portal. I don't think they got annihilated. The Utes lost some guys. Some of them, it's a bit of a one-off. Right? They already had relationships with Kyle or with the offensive coaching staff, and so they went. A bit of a one-off right there. Now, they did lose a couple other guys, and you always lose a couple guys. But I haven't seen these teams crushed, and we do read stories about other teams across the country getting crushed. So they're at least hanging in there for now. But that might be getting stuck in good, not great territory. And there's a certain amount of frustration, and I think great's going to be expected out of Morgan. And Morgan's getting paid pretty well. And people are spending money on the program, so I get it. But that going good from great right now, it's like Major League Baseball. You're in an uncapped world. I find it fascinating that the Millers want a Major League Baseball team. Now, they've gone deep into real estate. They used to be in sports and cars, and they pivoted and doing a lot of work in real estate and health. Well, I don't know if you've noticed all these new stadiums that I referenced in the last segment popping up. They're all real estate deals, and they're all super lucrative. So from that perspective, I totally get it. And even the Millers buying into soccer, they already owned a big chunk of land across the street, and they've gobbled up some more land around the stadium. So even buying an established team with an established stadium, and I think they're just going to enhance the stadium, not going to replace it. And I say just enhance. I think it's actually going to get some fairly major makeovers and have a different look because they did it with the arena, and I think they're going to do it again with the stadium. I think it's already in progress. Those are real estate deals. But when they get into Major League Baseball, they're getting into a sport that doesn't have a salary cap. Now, maybe we'll lose the 2027 season and we'll get a harder cap. We'll see. But, man, getting in this uncapped world where anybody can just go deep. But I think one thing we talk about when we talk about this with Pablo at 9 o'clock, going from good to great, what it requires is vision. You got to see a new way of doing things. And you know who had vision? And the reason we're doing this show, because he changed the local sports scene. That wasn't Sports Talk Radio when he started, but there was when he was done. It's Lavelle Edwards. If you're 20 years old, you don't even know his greatness, right? If you're 30, you still probably don't remember him coaching any games. But if you're 50 or 60 and you're listening to us, you think, yeah, that guy's a Hall of Famer, and there's no doubt about it. He took over BYU when they sucked. And there was 40 years of brutal football Go online and look it up. Hideous. Losing season stacked. There was no reason to think he could go down there and build a powerhouse. The guy had a vision. He had a vision for a different way of doing things. He had nothing to lose. He could always go back to coaching high school football. I was going to say go back to Granite High, but Granite High doesn't exist anymore. So, his alma mater is not a great example. Or not his alma mater, but where he had coached football in high school. He had a vision. We're going to throw the ball. We're going to do it different. Nobody was doing that. Now, about that time, there were a few other people who had a vision. ASU, Stanford, San Diego State coaches. And guess what? Along with BYU, those 4 programs all took off. They figured something out. And we saw it when Urban came through town. He had a vision, run the quarterback more. Get a second quarterback if you need one. He went to Ohio State. He played 3 one year and won a national championship. Why have one quarterback? Why not run the QB? If he gets hurt, play the second and third guy, win the title. He had a vision. He did it different. Then he had some other visions that got himself in trouble. But, we'll skip over that for right now. So this whole thing about good to great. We're going to talk about people and teams. We're going to talk about BYU football and Utah football and BYU basketball and the Jazz and the Mammoth and RSL. We got 6 local teams trying to go from good to great. How do you pull that off? And who in our own life doesn't want to figure it out? I mean, you want to get a raise or promotion at work. You want your business. Maybe you run a small company. You'd like to see that thing expand, and you'd like to sell to private equity like Cafe Rio did back in the day and cash out and go to the beach. Well, how do you go from good to great? It's not easy. It takes vision. Pablo obsesses about this stuff. We'll talk with him coming up at 9 o'clock. But vision, work ethic, education, both formal and informal. How do you make yourself smarter? Do you ever stop learning? Go to your boss when you're in your 40s or 50s and tell him, boss, I think I know enough. I'm going to stop learning. See how that works for you. See how quickly the door hits you know where. Jake, you ever walked across the room and blurted that out to a boss? When you had a concussion maybe?
No.
Because that's the only time you do it. And especially our business. So many businesses are evolving now. With AI, everything's evolving. Learn the next thing. Figure out the next thing. And that's what it's going to take. Because we've got a lot of teams that have gotten to good. And we can say a lot of nice things. But we want them to get to very good or great. And that's going to require hard conversations, having vision, doing stuff differently. Because if you don't, somebody else is. Somebody else is going to figure it out. You know why Danny Ainge got to hoist a trophy? Because he figured out, we got a decent team. We got a number 5 pick. We could just stay here. No. Do something bold and aggressive. Have a vision. There's a guy everybody wanted. He's been available for, he hasn't been. Everybody's wanted him for 5 years. He hasn't been available. Go get him. And the timing was right. Your timing does have to be right. Lavelle's timing was right. Utah County and Utah were getting ready to take off. And he took off with them. All right, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We'll talk about one of those teams going from good to great. Jake, we're going into your wheelhouse next. Brace yourself. Prepare yourself. We will get to that next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
They've been doing it for a while.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but are we experiencing the most uninteresting NBA playoff we've had for a while? Oklahoma City's great. San Antonio looks to be pretty good. Everybody else sucks. I don't think San Antonio's as good as Oklahoma City. I think it might be even a one-sided West, which seems crazy, but
whoever comes out of the East is going to get trounced by whoever comes out of the West. The only series I think anyone's truly waiting for now in the playoffs is Spurs Thunder. And that's going to come in the conference finals, and that's going to be viewed as essentially the finals, because whoever wins that's going to get the championship. So I think everybody's waiting for that.
Catch Jake and Ben afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses for a limited time. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life's sleep.
The Copper Rock PGA Championship begins next week, starting Monday. The KSL Sports Zone will pair the top 25 players in the world with a listener, and one will get the field at the PGA Championship. The winner will receive a Copper Rock logo golf bag and a $100 gas gift card. It's brought to you by Copper Rock, where the pros play. I have not been to Copper Rock, but PK has. I've seen a lot of video from Copper Rock. It looks fantastic.
It's a great course. I've played it.
All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The question of the morning, a question that, I don't know if it haunts, that might be too strong, but it's a question that looms over a bunch of our local teams. How do you go from good to great? Pablo Mastriani loves that topic. He's going to be on at 9 o'clock. RSL's facing that right now. They're a good team, but how do they get to be a great one? The Jazz, I know they've been terrible. I think they're about to be good. But that's not great, as they will find out when they bump into Oklahoma City or San Antonio in the playoffs, if they get that far. That's what great looks like. That's what they're chasing. That's why they broke up the last group. The Mammoth made it to the playoffs. That's good, but you want to go deep, and you need to be great. And it looms for BYU and Utah football and for BYU basketball. And I'm fascinated, Jake, because I think you're following this more closely than I am, but I'm following it, and from a distance, I think BYU's been good 2 years in a row. It was a great first year because you have to factor in that it was the first time most of that staff coached in college, Chris Burgess aside, but other than that, it was mostly pros, and the schedule was partially made for them. They inherited a team that was partly made to get to the Sweet 16, which BYU's only done a couple other times. I thought that was a great season. But then you remove that whole caveat, and now it's your schedule. You've got something, you got a feel for this. Not that you don't stop learning. We just covered that. They'll keep learning too. But I'm looking at this roster that's going together, and it's good. They brought in some good players. They've done some stuff that I wanted to see them do. There was a little bit of a local Utah all-star team floating around college basketball. Well, bring some of those guys home. You probably can't get them all, but bring some of them home, and they have. And they've gone out and it looks like they have another lottery pick. So they've done that. But I'm looking at the pieces come together, and if we define great as Elite Eight, which is why I want to set the bar right now, I don't think they have that. I think they have a first or second round tournament. Now, they're not done. They're still trying to bring guys in, but it's all still getting late. A lot of guys have committed here. Doesn't mean they won't bring in one or two key guys. Jake, am I off base, or are you looking like, yeah, they put together a nice team. It's an NCAA tournament team, but it looks like a team that goes out in the first week, not a team that goes out in the second?
As currently constructed, I think you're right. The biggest thing they're looking for is they got to find a true big man. That's what they've been looking overseas for. They've got a couple of guys who are in the NBA draft cycle right now that they're hoping will withdraw their name from the draft, and maybe they can scoop one of those guys up. There is a guy that's actually funny enough playing with Ricky Rubio right now in Spain. His name's Michael Ruzic. He's a Croatian big man that they're hot on the heels of. So if they can find a true big man that can offer them more than what their big man offered them last year, yeah, then I think they have the chance of making the run that you're talking about them having the goal of. But currently constructed, it's probably a first weekend team.
They don't need, although it'd be awesome if they had it, some dominant 7-foot center. You can win at a very high level in college basketball with, 3 6'10" guys across your front line. You can do it. It's been done.
They only have 1 6'10" guy right now.
That's interesting that they're waiting on guys and it really makes sense, waiting on guys to pull out of the draft. And let's face it, you can influence that in a way that you didn't used to be able to. And that goes back to the boosters. The hard things that have to be done, some of them involve money. And that's why I set Utah State basketball aside from this discussion of good to great. Because I think for the money they had in the league they were in and everything they have, what they did is just about what they can do. Maybe they could win a second game and get Sweet 16.
Sure.
G5 teams aren't really going further than that anymore.
So
if you play G5 football, it's pretty hard. San Diego State did it a couple of years ago, and the door's kind of been slammed on everybody since then. So, but the more money, if BYU ponies up more money, will someone pull out? Why take a maybe in the draft if I got a sure thing of getting paid at BYU and I can go back in the draft a year later?
Well, and to your point, that's what they're kind of banking on right now. The name to know if you're looking at guys in the draft that BYU is held on the heels of, he's an Italian center by the name of Luigi Squigo. He's 7'2". He's 250 pounds. He's been playing in their top league in Italy for multiple years. He is currently slated to kind of be a first half of the second round right now. He's going through the NBA workouts. The thought process is if he does not move himself into the first round with his workouts, then he ultimately would probably take the guaranteed money that comes via NIL, multiple millions, because that's what a big man's worth right now in NIL, and that's where BYU can get into the fray. But they have to wait for him to ultimately go through these workouts and then decide, hey, I want to go the college route.
All right, that's intriguing. I mean, that does sound like not having ever seen him play, right? So let's just take that at face value. But not having seen him play, that does sound like the kind of player they need. That sounds like a pretty good match, and maybe that's what elevates them and turns them into that team that's playing in the second week. And we can sit here and talk Sweet 16, Elite 8, and you don't know how the matchups are going to fall, who's going to be healthy, who's going to have shots falling, who's going to get the calls and the free throws or the lucky bounce off the rim. But you still have a pretty good feel for a roster and what it looks like. And the cool thing is now you're in a league where you get tested and you can really set that bar. And if you don't match it, you have time to get better, identify your weaknesses, because somebody in this league is going to be playing in the second week, probably multiple teams, and you might have a Final Four team in this league, as they did just this past year with Arizona. So, but, I mean, obviously Houston's been really good. Texas Tech might put something together. I mean, you can go down the line. Iowa State's been very good, and I haven't even mentioned Kansas. I'm 5 deep before I get to Kansas. That's stupid to wait that long to talk about Kansas, given their history in basketball. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Scotty G joins us next. Going from good to great, it takes money, and it takes vision. And maybe Scotty just got a glimpse of those two things in action. He will explain next. Stay with us. David Locke is coming up. He's going to join us at 8:30. Pablo Mastroeni is here at 9 to talk about going from good to great. We'll talk good to great with David Locke as well. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.